Good afternoon or good morning, wherever you are. Welcome to the first technical workshop in our Audiences and Analytics module, creating an analytics toolbox to evaluate museum digital experiences. This module is brought to you by the Digital Empowerment for Small Museums Project, a nationwide initiative organized by the 6 U.S. regional museum associations and dedicated to providing free self-paced training resources for small museums. This inaugural series of online trainings focuses on digital media and technology topics is made possible by funding from the Institute of Museum and Library Services. My name is Avery Shaughnessy Comfort. My pronouns are she, her, and I am your host for today's program. My visual description is as follows. I am a white female with short, brown, wavy hair, wearing red, square-shaped glasses, and a purple three-quarter sleeve top. Typically, I'm located in my home office, but today I'm broadcasting to you from my kitchen. So behind me is a yellow wall, a tray full of keys, and a gray curtain. In this era of virtual meetings, when digital spaces may substitute for our physical sense of place, it is important to reflect on the land we each occupy and honor the Indigenous people who have called it home. I'm speaking to you today from Erie, Pennsylvania, the historic homelands of the Eries and Seneca peoples. Wherever each of us are located, let us acknowledge all Indigenous nations as living communities, their elders both past and present, as well as future generations. We, the Digital Empowerment Project for Small Museums, recognize that our organizations and those of our members were founded within a colonizing society which perpetuated the exclusions and erasures of many Native peoples throughout the United States and beyond. We ask you to reflect on the place where you reside and work, and to respect the diversity of cultures and experiences that form the richness of our world and our profession. And now for a few housekeeping notes before we introduce today's presenter. I'd like to acknowledge today's American Sign Language, or ASL interpreter, situated on the left-hand side of your screen. Captioning for today's program is embedded in a box just below the YouTube player located on our Watch Live page on our website, with controls to adjust your experience. The best way to continuously refine our craft is to listen to our attendees. So we ask that you share your candid feedback with us. Following today's program, you will be sent a link to a satisfaction survey. Sharing your experience through the survey will only take a few minutes and will greatly improve our work. During today's program, we will address as many of your questions as time allows. However, sometimes we are unable to answer all of your questions, and frequently other questions pop up after reflecting on a program. So we have set up an online community forum for raising these questions, posting answers, and connecting with your fellow museum practitioners on our website. If you're looking for help in between programs, please be sure to visit the forum, create a login, and post your questions. A member of the community or one of our student technology fellows will get back to you. Lastly, please be sure to follow us on social media to be aware of future programs. Links to our social media pages will be posted in the chat area. And now it is my pleasure to introduce today's presenter, Elena Villaespesa, Assistant Professor at the School of Information at the Pratt Institute in New York. Elena's research and teaching areas of interest include digital strategy, data analytics, user experience research, and applied evaluation within the museum sector. Elena is a co-founder of the Museums and AI Network, which is funded through an AHRC network grant. She completed her PhD in Digital Heritage at the School of Museum Studies at the University of Leicester in the United Kingdom, and a master's in Arts Management from Universidad Carlos III in Madrid, Spain. She has previously worked as a digital analyst at the Metropolitan Museum of Art and the Tate. In these roles, she was in charge of establishing and overseeing an analytics program to monitor and assess museum digital channels, platforms, and programs. So let's please pass the mic over to Elena. Welcome, Elena, and please take it away.
Inviting me to these webinars and also for this nice introduction. So today I'm going to be talking about how you can create your analytics toolbox. The reason I selected this topic is that I get asked that question many times. I do presentations about some of the user research work that I've done, and everyone is asking me, what are the tools that you use? So my idea with this presentation is to give you an overview of the range of tools available in the market. I'll talk about the pros and cons of each one, and I will also show you some examples from my experience, from some of the student work during my classes at Pratt, that hopefully will help you to illustrate the opportunities to collect data from users and understand them better and optimize your digital products. So I'm going to share my slides here. All right. So this is the agenda for today. So we are going to start with an introduction about the analytics process, and then we're going to go right into the different analytics tools available. I'm going to be cover here analytics tools focused for digital products like websites. As I know, social media analytics is going to be covered in the next webinar.
Hi, Elena. It looks like we can't see your screen, so would you mind trying to share one more time, and we'll get it up on there for you.
Sorry about that.
That's okay.
I should be knowing this by now. Okay, let's see now. Is it working now?
It's working, Elena.
All right, perfect. So yeah, I was saying that the agenda for today is that we're going to be starting with the analytics process, and then we're going to be seeing different analytics tools that you can use to evaluate your digital products. Then I'll show you a couple of case studies where I use a combination of these tools to improve our digital offering. And finally, I will also talk about tools that you can use not only to gather and analyze the data, but also to communicate your findings and your insights to the rest of the team. So museums have more and more data from users, especially in the digital environment. Visitors, they book their ticket online, and they connect with the Wi-Fi during their visit. They share their experience on social media. They may purchase after like a souvenir in the online shop. They visit the website. They use the mobile app audio guide. So all these user interactions with the museum generates a ton of data. And more analytics tools allow you to be very granular and better understand user journeys, behaviors, and attitudes in this experience. And this data can be used in many different ways. It can be used to improve the user experience. It can help you to optimize your products. You can do some experiments for that purpose. You can do audience research to better understand your users. And increasing need to use data to generate revenue. You can personalize as well users' experience. And finally, data can be used to optimize your marketing and promotional campaigns. So it seems like there are a lot of opportunities of using data, but having analytics in place can be a bit challenging sometimes. So I'm going to be talking about that. And I wanted to do a quick survey here to the audience. So I would like to know, what are your main challenges to implement analytics in your museum? So there are two ways you can respond to this survey. You can grab your phone, scan this QR code, and you will be directed to this survey. Or you can go to this website, slido.com, and enter this number here, 448121, and access this survey, this poll. So I'm going to give you a minute, so you can all respond here, and we can comment on the responses. Okay, so we're seeing some of the responses coming in, and there's definitely a clear winner so far. And one of the main challenges is that you're unsure about how to choose the right metrics, which is the thing that I have encountered many times. And actually, one of the things that I wanted to show you in this presentation is that it's not only about the tools, but it's also about the process. And sometimes starting from the tools is not the right approach. And that's why sometimes you end up with these evaluation challenges, because, as I'm going to show you in the next slide, the process of analytics starts with a strategy. Okay, so I'm going to give a few more seconds, and then we'll move to the next one. It seems now that lack of time is also another challenge. So it's interesting that tools did not appear at the top, which is great. So let's see. So tools actually should be something that comes at the very end of the process. So the main challenges that I have encountered when creating a dashboard, when evaluating a project, is to have the team agreeing on the metrics that we want to track. So first, you have to think about your requirements, what you want to achieve, and then you will define the metrics. And once you know what you want to track, what you want to measure, then you will select the tools that will help you to evaluate that user experience. And then once you have the data, you do the analysis, you will communicate the findings to your team. So that's the starting point. So if you're unsure about the metrics that you need to select, go back to your strategy. Make sure those objectives are well defined, and think about your goals in that digital strategy. Then that will help you to define the metrics and think as well about the targets. What is the metric that you're aiming to have once you launch a digital product? And then, other more like practical implications of this process will be thinking about the frequency of reporting, the actions that can be taken, the tactics that will influence those results. And finally, it's going to be the topic of today's presentation, but linking it to the previous steps, is what are the tools that you need to gather the data, analyze it, and report it. So there are different types of analytics tools. There are those that are more quantitative and those that are more qualitative. And then you have another type of classification that are those analytics tools that track users' behavior, what the user is actually doing, versus those who are more like attitudinal, maybe like user testing or a survey. This is what people are saying they will do. So sometimes, and you're going to see through this presentation, you're going to need a combination of these tools to gather the holistic view of the user experience. So here are some of the examples in these tools. I talk about analytics tools. You can also call it a UX research method. There are some overlaps in those. And examples, for example, of behavioral and quantitative would be things like Google Analytics, web analytics, A/B testing. The completely opposite side of this chart, you will have attitudinal and qualitative research methods that will be like a focus group, an interview. And then something in between, you will have surveys, very quantitative, and you get a lot of data, but you can also capture some more detailed qualitative information with some feedback. And then you have in behavioral tools or methods, like things like user testing or eye tracking. And the combination of these will really help you to evaluate a digital product. So we are going to now do an overview of the different methods and tools, and I will be showing you some examples. But before going into that, a second question here. What are the analytics tools that you are currently using? So similar process as before, you can scan this QR code or go to slido.com, enter this number, and answer your responses. You can add multiple ones. So if you're using like Google Analytics, Facebook Insights, and email analytics, you can enter like 3 entries instead of 1. So I'd be curious to know like what are the most common tools this audience is using. And if you don't have tools, you can mention like none, 0. That's fine too. It will be good to see, also those museums who are starting in the process, and that's why you are attending these sessions. We see Google Analytics, Facebook Insights, MailChimp, some survey tools like SurveyMonkey, Twitter Analytics, so mix of web and social media analytics tools. JotForm, constant contact. Okay, so it seems many of you are using Google Analytics and some of the social media tools, as well as some survey tools. That seems to be like majority of you. Excellent. And some of you are not using analytics yet, which is fine. And hopefully after this one, you may start thinking about, what would you like to do with your digital products in the future, and how analytics can help you in that process, and which analytics tools you can use for that. Thank you for those who responded. So I'm going to do an overview of the different methods and tools. I mean, there are many. You have from digital analytics to heat maps and score maps, A/B testing. You can combine these with surveys. You can do as well like user testing, eye tracking. And here are other examples like car sorting, more qualitative interviews, and user journey maps. So I'm going to be talking about some of those, and I'll show you some examples. And what I included in the slides, which I hope will help you to create your toolbox, is some examples of those tools. I'm not affiliated with any of these brands or tools, so this is my based on my experience and my knowledge. And yeah, let's start with Web Analytics. This is the one that since most of you are very familiar with. This is where you will be collecting data from your website. Analytics, Google Analytics is the most well-known tool in the sector. It's free. And the good things about these tools is that you can collect almost 100% of the behavioral data from your users. Is in their native environment. It has low investment because the basic implementation is just to include a tracking code on the template of your site. And it has very good features to segment your users. The only challenge is that, you cannot ask users why they did specific, actions, and it cannot be used with prototypes. And the site needs to be live. And what digital analytics allows you is to get some data about, who comes to the website, where they're coming from, what they are visiting, and then whether they are converting, and that will be based on your own goals. So starting with who is your audience, these analytics tools give you data about how many people come to your website, which device they are using, where they are located, and if they are coming frequently or not. Then you get data about acquisition, what are the referrals? Is it like people searching on Google, social media? Is it from your email campaigns? Then once they are on your website, you're able to see things, like the pages they visited, the user journeys, where they clicked, what they are searching internally. And finally, you can set up your own goals. So you can have maybe some e-commerce goals like donations, ticket sales, membership sales, and so on. And then you can have also some non-e-commerce goals. For example, if someone downloaded a learning resource, if they commented on your blog. So this is where you can customize the tool based on your strategic objectives. So here are some examples of, this is from a study conducted by Spielberg Associates. They use Google Analytics from all these museums here to track the impact of the pandemic in website visitation. So they were able to see, the drop when museums closed, and then how in some cases, because of high visitation to online collections, learning resources, traffic to those specific sections increased. Here's an example from the Met's online collection. So we gathered data about how many people come, if they are returning or new visitors, the device that they are using, if they are from the US or international visitors. And something that was very useful to make decisions about changes on the website is to know from these tools that 70% of the users who visit the collection start their journey on an object page. And that was a very important number for the team to realize that sometimes we get obsessed with home pages, landing pages, but actually the landing page for most of our users were actually the object page. Here's another, this is one of my favorite reports. This is the search report. You can see what people are entering in your internal search box. And it helps you to gather ideas about content creation, as well as, you can optimize your search to offer better results. You can customize your Google Analytics settings. And one thing that we did at the Met was to create a specific view on Google Analytics to filter the data from our Wi-Fi users. So that's something that you can do. And then you are able to analyze the behavior of those who are visiting your museum. So you can see the mobile device that they're using, the collection objects that they are checking during their visit, and also, again, what they are internally searching. So in this case, they were searching for the audio guide and, of course, the map, as well as some well-known artist names. Okay, let's move to the next analytics tool, heat maps and scroll maps. Those are very good visual reports that aggregated all the different clicks on the different elements of a page. What is very nice about these tools is that they are very visual, as you can see on the right. So very quickly, you can see in the top image where people click on the Tate's landing page. Or, how far people scroll down on a page. So if it's yellow, white, means people's attention was there for a long period of time. And if you have cooler areas like green and yellow and blue, it means that people stop looking at the page there. So here you have some examples of the tools. There are many more, and some of them offer free, a limited number of views that you can get data from, but it's a good starting point. You may need to have the tool and gather the data for a long period of time, but some of the tools offer some free plans, so it's interesting to check those out. And the good thing as well is about implementation. Similar to Google Analytics, you copy the code that they gave you, you put it on your template, and then you decide which pages of your site you want to track. And the advantages, I was saying, is very effective in terms of visual reporting, it's behavioral data, but again, the site needs to be live. And those tools that offer heat maps and scroll maps also give you something called recordings. And those are videos that show you how the visitor is interacting with your website. It's good to combine with heat maps, but you need a lot of time to do the analysis, as you have to watch many videos from users, to understand patterns and behaviors. These analytics tools I've talked about so far are very good at quantitative data, behavioral data. However, the challenge that they have is that you don't know why they are doing those actions. So sometimes you have to combine it with things like user testing. User testing consists on, recruiting participants, put them in front of a digital device, and then asking them to do a series of tasks, like check the opening times for the museum, or search for a specific artist in our collection. This can be done remotely. I've done a lot of remote user testing in the past couple of years, or you can do them as well in person. There are different tools. Of course, if you do it remotely, you can take advantage of tools like Zoom or Google Meet. Some of them are free. But for a more advanced implementation and analysis, there are other tools also available in the market. The good thing is that this gives you a lot of data to identify usability problems. Sometimes, it seems that to do user testing, you need like a lab, or it can be like challenging as you need you need a space or something, and you need a whole like protocol and so on. However, something that I've done a lot is what is called like very light user testing or hallway user testing, where you don't need as many resources as with more traditional user testing in a lab. Here, you can take your prototype, you can grab an iPad, and just grab people at the exit of the museum, maybe in the cafe next door, or maybe in another public space. You can test with target users of your site, or also non-users. And that's the advantage of this. You combine maybe some feedback from people that are not familiar with your brand. This is very useful to use prototypes, and it's very cheap and quick. I used to do this a lot at the Met to test, for example, like navigation or the layout of a specific page. I will go with the mockup in an iPad and ask people questions about it. The good thing about user testing, as I was saying, you can gather a lot of qualitative data. And here's a common example of a usability problem in many museum websites, which is language and nomenclature. Many times we use our museum internal language, and that creates a lot of challenging experiences for users. So this was from a study we did at Pratt for the Art Institute of Chicago, where people were very interested to use the filters to drill down into the collection. However, they found the names, including the filters, a bit difficult, like the word classifications or even departments. They were not sure about what they're going to find there. Another analytics tool, this is again more quantitative, is A/B testing. I like this tool because it helps the team to confirm, what we think may work on a website before we put it live. A/B testing consists on providing 2 or more versions of a page to users. So you have version A, version B, and maybe some other versions. And you may change something like an image, or maybe the action button, or the color of your buttons. And you see which one is working better for your purpose. There are some different tools in the market. One that is free is Google Optimize. And the good thing about these tools is that they're integrated with Google Analytics and other analytics tools. So you get a good picture of the whole experience. So yeah, the advantage is that you can validate your hypothesis. People have different opinions in teams, so this is a very good way to test things. But it's challenging. Again, going back to this first question, how you define what are the metrics of success. And that's the main thing that takes a lot of time in A/B testing. And then another tool I wanted to mention is online surveys. This can be long or short. On the right-hand side here, in the image, you have an example from a survey we did with the museum in one of our courses, where users were asked just one question: what motivates you to come to the WithNeeds website today? And users had these options. The good thing about short surveys, I do more and more this, is response rates. Otherwise, sometimes your data may be biased to only people that are familiar with your brand or tend to engage more with it. Advantage of this as well is that some of these tools allow you to connect your responses to your analytics data on Google Analytics, for example. So after this overview of the tools, what I'm going to do now is to show you a couple of examples of how to use these tools. So I'm going to grab just a bit of water, and we'll continue. So the first example I wanted to show you is how analytics helped us at the Met to better understand our users for the online collection. So for this, we used a combination of tools. We asked a survey, and then we linked those responses to Google Analytics. This way we could find about people's motivations, and then link that to, where they were coming from, the device they were using, what they were interested to see on the site, and so on. here are the responses. So you had, people with an intellectual motivation, doing research, wanted to learn more about art. You have other users that came with a more like inspirational goal, like trying to find inspiration for their own creative work, or maybe they stumble upon our visual content on Pinterest or other social media platforms. And then you also had users that wanted to plan their visit to the museum. We also asked them about, how they will describe themselves and their knowledge of art. So you can see here the breakdowns. And using that, what we did was to connect, motivations with the connection to the sector, but also the online behavior. And based on that, we define 6 types of users: the professional researchers, the student researchers, and those coming with a personal interest. In the inspiration section, we had inspiration seekers, those who were coming to find inspiration, but they knew normally about the Met, and they have a very specific focus on what they were searching for. And then we had those casual browsers who had like a more unfocused visit. And then the planners I was talking about before. So here is where we combined the data from the survey and also from Google Analytics to create this basically user description, where we had their motivation, the traffic sources, the device that they were using. I'm not going to stop much in the details. I prefer to talk now about the tools and the process, but this is published. You have the links in the slides, and you can find more details about each of the segments. But the idea that I want to talk about here is that combination of qualitative and quantitative data was very useful to create an overview of the user type. And following the analytics process, this was used to inform how we were planning content and thinking about our digital products. So we did different workshops with this type of users, like user stories, okay? Thinking about the different type of users and what they wanted or expected to have on the website. And the next example that I wanted to show you is one project that we did about redesigning the object page. It was not something that we did in one day. It's actually something that took months. And again, here we used a combination of analytics tools to understand our users, verify, our hypotheses, and test some of our ideas. As I was talking before, we knew from analytics that 70% of our users were starting the journey on the object instead of on the homepage. So that's why we were thinking, okay, now this is a page that needs some attention, and actually we may increase pages per visit if we better create user journeys from here. So in this project, we wanted to understand personas, their browsing patterns, points of frustrations, and also make the page more accessible to different audiences and encourage deeper exploration of the collection. So some of the findings, and I'll show you how analytics supported those findings, is that probably everyone knows about these. Visuals, images are key in the experience. And so this is the old object page, and you can see there's like a top image here, and then you have an area just below that says additional images and a plus sign. If you click on that plus sign, you will then see multiple images. So the heat map showed us that there was quite a bit of interest from our users to see those additional images. So what we decided was okay, what if we remove that, expandable box and we just show the images by default? So that's what we did. And we look again at analytics to see the impact of this change. And, the number of clicks on those images increased by, I don't know what the number was, 300%. So it was useful to use analytics to understand the behavior, but also to confirm that the changes that we had applied had been successful. Here's an example of, in this case, of a heat map on the object page. You can see here the version for the heat map for the desktop and the mobile phone. And as you can see, it was a huge, vertical experience, one column. So the information will be, one after the other, the thumbnail, the thumbstone data, the description, further like related objects below. So you could see based on this heat map that visitors will stop at the very top, and they wouldn't like see all the content that we had. So layout and information hierarchy really affects the visibility of content, and on mobile was even worse. So I don't know if you will be hear this, but I've noticed I added the captions. So this is a user having like in the user testing session. So yeah, we got also like qualitative feedback complaining about how long this page was. So we did some changes on the hierarchy and how we the layout of the content, and I'll show you later the final page. And again, talking about analytics and the process, it was a iterative approach. So we did a lot of A/B testing to test things first before we will implement it in production. So in some of these content areas, there was like some expandable boxes where you had like the audio, the catalog entry, provenance, links to other sections of the website. So for audio, similar to the image example, we tested, if showing it by default will increase clicks on audio content, especially for those in the galleries looking for the audio guide and audio content. So we tested these two versions, and definitely version B was more successful. We didn't implement the exact change that you see in the screen, but here's the data from analytics that show that after the design change, both the audio plays and the percentage of users who use audio increased on the online collection. So tools are useful to implement changes. So here are the outcomes of this project. We made sure to surface key information above the fall of the page, and you can see the change on the right image. So we included the images, the audio content. We also made sure that the description of the object was next to the image, so it was easier to read. We improved like labeling, and also we tried to build a narrative. So hopefully that illustrates you how analytics can help you in your process to improve the user experience. And the last thing I wanted to briefly talk about, which I also get a lot of questions, is like how you communicate your analytics findings, how you tell the team about your improvements and the successes and the failures and so on. So the most common reporting tools are really in the field in general is like reports and dashboards. Dashboards is this like visual, like one page where you can add multiple widgets that show you, the key metrics, the KPIs, the key performance indicators, and then maybe some charts and some further detail where you can drill down about the analytics data. Here, there are different tools in the market. I'll mention two here, Power BI. So if your museum has Microsoft as the system for everything, this is one that you may want to consider. This is one that we used at the Met for a while. And a tool that I use more and more is Google Data Studio. It's free, and the good thing about it is that it allows you to connect to multiple data sources. So if you want to put website data with social media data, email data in one place, this tool is pretty good at this. It's also free, and you can customize it significantly. So this is an example from a class project from that Whitney example you saw before. However, the other method I was talking about is reports. But from my experience, and from your experience as well, we are all very busy and we don't have time to read a 20-page report. So more and more, I'm using other communication methods to quickly share the findings with the team. So something I did a lot at Tate and continue later is to create infographics. Those, are easy to put in walls. This is actually a board that I had outside my office at the Met with some like key user insights from projects that I had been working on. And I will also put these ones maybe in the kitchen, so when people are putting things in the microwave, they can learn about some of the user insights. Also, another thing you can use is maybe like Slack or the intranet, the internal communication tools people use on daily basis. So here's an example where you can see a specific channel about user insights. And also, quick presentations in meetings. Try to embed analytics in as many meetings as possible. Sometimes you have to use a mixed, communications approach because it takes time. It's not something, that suddenly everyone knows about data and they know everything about users. But, a significant amount of my work as a digital analyst has been about communicating the results. Maybe it would be like a third of my time. I will go to meetings, create these infographics, share email data and emails with the team. And over time, I was able to see how more and more people in the museum were using data in meetings to, think about their audiences, about the impact, and so on. So to conclude my presentation, hopefully you got an idea of the tools that you can include in your toolbox. The key thing to highlight is that sometimes you need a combination of qualitative and quantitative and method and tools to capture the whole user experience. The other thing I want you to take away from this presentation is that there are many different tools available in the market, and some of them are not very expensive or are free. So do a bit of research based on your needs. There's like plenty of tools available in the market. Some of them are open source, or some are provided by like big companies and are available free. Or they may offer, a free plan that is maybe not like a lot of data, but it will give you a good sample for your analysis. The next thing, following the last thing I presented, is get creative on how you share your insights. If you do analytics, think about the amount of time you're going to be sharing your insights, because no matter like how good is your data, how beautiful are your charts, you need to share them with the team. And then make sure that analytics is integrated in your whole digital production process. So when we are thinking about a digital product, a new initiative, think about, what you want to understand from users, what do you want to evaluate. That will help you to decide on the tools and maybe do some settings during production that will help you to gather the right data. And of course, once you launch the product, when it's live, what is the tools available that will help you to gather data and then integrating it into production, so you make improvements based on that. And I also wanted to mention that you've seen some examples here from my courses. So another option that you have is that we, from the Pratt, we have a digital experiences center, and we run analytics and usability evaluation projects every semester. We partner with many museums. So if you're interested, you also have the link here for further information. And this is free. So thank you a lot for attending this presentation. I will stop sharing my screen now, and we can go to other questions.
All right. Thank you so much, Elena. Lots of really useful tools for all of us. Before we dive into lots of questions, I do want to acknowledge that I have a bit of an environment change behind me. I did move to my home office, so behind me is a white wall with 2 windows and a bookcase. So I just wanted to share that before we jump in.
Yeah, I missed that part again. I also have, I'm in a home office, and I have a bookcase behind me. And in terms of my visual description, I'm a Latino woman in my 30s, and I have brown hair, brown eyes, and I'm wearing a black t-shirt.
All right, thank you. So first question for you, for somebody who is, let's say, either new to analytics or maybe hasn't used some of these tools before, what's a good starting point? What's a good, maybe beginner tool isn't the right word, but what's a good way to get started?
So I know these tools provide a lot of data, and sometimes that's where we want to start. However, I will go back to one of my initial slides and think about your objectives and which data you actually need. Because it's better to have like just one tool that gives you the right data. Maybe you have to invest a little bit on that one. Then, have this like toolbox of all the analytics tools I just mentioned today. So I actually didn't like purchase of the tools when I started like working in one of these museums. This was like something that based on our user research needs, we were like purchase for maybe a year or implement based on a project that we had. So really think about your objectives and how you want to use the data, what you want to learn from your users, and then decide on the tools.
That's very helpful. Okay, so next question we have is, I mean, you mentioned that there's a lot of free and open source software that's accessible and out there for small to mid-sized museums. And I think you use quite a bit in your presentation too. Would you mind reiterating what some of those free or open source options are?
Sure. So, of course, Google offers a lot of those tools like Google Analytics for web analytics. You have Google Optimize for A/B testing. They have Google Data Studio to create dashboards. But some of the other tools that I included offer you like a free plan. I know, for example, Hotjar for heat maps has like, I don't know, what is the limit, but maybe you have like 100 page views per day. It's a small amount, but maybe the traffic of your site is not that huge. And that's enough of a sample to make some decisions based on the data. And for user testing, I will advocate for guerrilla user testing, get you a paper with your design and go and ask users. It's going to be super valuable information, more than you would ever think.
Something really simple that perhaps we overthink sometimes. Absolutely. So a question related to Google products. This person is wondering if Google Analytics feeds into Power BI.
Yeah, there is a specific connector for Power BI that gets data from Google Analytics. However, because those are competitors or like different, as we know, is not as advanced as the one from Google Data Studio. But if you need something like total number of sessions, like top level analytics data directly from the reports, that is good for. If you want to do more like advanced segmentation, filtering, Google Data Studio is much better for that.
Very good to know. We also had somebody ask if you could repeat the dashboard apps that you mentioned. Even if it's helpful to bring up your slides, we can do that again for you.
Sure. Let me share the screen again. Yeah, for dashboards, the names are Power BI. This is a Microsoft product. And then you have Google Data Studio. And these are the ones that I've used the most. But I know there are others in the sector. And like another one I will quickly add here. It's Tableau. This is actually pretty good also for data analysis. And something also to regarding tools to think about is that some of these tools, they normally have a non-profit discount. So always, for survey tools, I know some of them had it when I purchased them in the past. So that's something also to consider, like to approach the organization and check if they have any discounts for non-profits.
Helpful advice for sure. I know some of those, like, I don't know if SurveyMonkey does, but I know like JotForm has nonprofit discounts. So definitely something to look into to save a couple of bucks. Speaking of things like JotForm and perhaps surveys and evaluations, this person is wondering, how is that possible with a limited or small staff and a small budget? So perhaps going back to your initial poll, how do you have effective evaluation when you have such a small staff and a small budget? What can you do?
I know this is challenging, but start small. with one project and then dedicate quite a lot of time to communicating that. I mean, something that happened, for example, at Tate was that I started more as a digital producer, and I was doing analytics, and that increased. And then basically I was hired as a full-time digital analyst because we realized that more and more we needed that data, and having those resources was actually a good investment because, doing digital products is actually pretty expensive. So having, you may spend on analytics, but maybe you will be saving on production costs. So I will start small, maybe use one of these tools to do a short poll, like one question survey. It could be about satisfaction. It could be about people's motivations. It could be about, overall feedback about your content. And try to grow from there, start small. And then maybe, leadership and managers will see the importance of it.
Well, leading into that, so some of that data from evaluation, one of our next questions talks about how that evaluation data can be shared with staff and boards, and what kind of information do you find is the most useful to share with staff and boards when it comes to insights or analytics?
Yeah, that's a very good question. And so something that many managers like is actually to have a dashboard. They are used to that, from even finance, from the finance department. So thinking about a strategic dashboard where you have some of your key performance indicators could be a very good starting point. But also, it depends on the manager and so on, but I know many people also like to have that user stories that they can share with other departments and maybe with the director. So trying to come up, and this is something that I work a lot because in many museums, people have different backgrounds. I work in art museums. They are not familiar with the statistics. So I'm not going to plan to send a spreadsheet with all the data. So I try to become very creative on how we will tell the stories about our users. And I think that was pretty effective. Thinking about, you do a piece of research and you have a couple of findings from that you want to share. So how you share that story so it's in everyone's mind.
I really like that. How do you tell the story of the user? I think that's a good takeaway for today. That's really beautiful. All right, so we have time for probably one or two more questions, and then we'll wrap up here. So this person asked about heat maps. The heat maps seem to show that the related assets were not viewed as much. Have you done any A/B testing to see if the placement on page changes that?
We didn't do a specific A/B testing for related content. What we did, it was more as you saw, one column with object after object. It was more, we had now a carousel. But also something that we learned, but this was from user testing, was the labeling and was not clear. And also users were confused about why these objects were related to the object page that they were in. So we didn't do specific testing, but that's definitely something I would recommend. I know some museums have done small thumbnails, bigger thumbnails to see if that will bring more attention. Definitely visuals help. But we did some user testing to understand why people may not click on those.
Very interesting. And then our last question here is about audio pages. So this person is wondering if you use images on those audio pages, and if you do, did they affect time on the page?
So imagine this refers to this audio piece of content that was on the object page. So that one didn't have an image. It was only this arrow play button symbol. But yeah, it may actually, because we had sometimes multiple audio files for the object that confused users, why you have, because maybe one is the director talking about the artwork, and maybe one is more for kids, comes from the learning department. So maybe, we didn't do it. So maybe, images can play a role showing different type of experiences. definitely something I would recommend to test.
Absolutely. If you can test it, you can do it, right? All right. So that was all of our questions for today. Do you have any final words of wisdom for us before we close out?
So I hope this illustrated the range of tools available and hopefully was not very overwhelming. I will start small, and I know you may think, okay, it comes from Tate, from the Met, big museums, big budget, but actually my analytics budget at the beginning was not that big. It was pretty small. So build from that, and yeah, try to make use of the free available tools in the market, and think always about what you want to achieve before you decide on the tools.
Absolutely. Great words of wisdom to leave on today. Thank you so much for this great presentation.
Thank you all.
All right. And thank you all for attending today's program. And once again, thank you to Elena. If you enjoyed this program, please do us a favor and share it with your networks. We really appreciate your participation, and we hope to see you for future programs. After each module concludes, all 4 videos will be available on our website, as well as a complete toolkit of resources provided by our presenters. To museum-hub.org for more information on upcoming events. Some final reminders for you. Please remember to visit the forum on our website to ask questions. Follow us on social media to stay aware of future programs, and links to those will be provided in the chat. Complete the post-event satisfaction survey. And lastly, be sure to join us next week. And please note the special days. This time will be on Tuesday. So our next event will be Tuesday, November 16th at 2 p.m. Eastern, 11 a.m. Pacific time for the second technical workshop in this module, which is Building Digital Strategies and Interpreting Social Media Analytics with Acacia Berry, founder at Archaeological Analytics. Thank you all for your time today, and we hope to see you next week. Stay well and take care.